All right, let's do another deep dive. Today we're going to take a look at George Orwell's 1984. You know this book? I mean, it's like a warning, right? Like a siren. But it never gets old, you know what I mean? And it makes us really think about power and truth and just like what it means to be a person in a world where people are always trying to like mess with that.
Yeah.
So have you ever felt like, like someone's watching you, like right over your shoulder, like just watching everything you do?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's 1984, right? That's what this book is all about. And we're going to use this summary that you gave me to take a look at how Orwell made this world.
Okay.
Okay, so picture 1984, but not our 1984. This is Oceania, right? And it's this huge, powerful country, and it's run by the party, and they control everything, you know? Your food, your job, even what you're thinking. It's like living in a pressure cooker, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And they even messed up language. They made this messed up language called Newspeak.
So imagine like a world where words are, they just get rid of words or like they change what they mean, you know? So you can't even think about fighting back. It's pretty creepy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what I think is really interesting is that he uses these like normal government departments, like ministries, you know, Ministry of Truth, Ministry of Peace, Love, Plenty. So at first you think, ooh, okay.
Yeah, like what could go wrong?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Exactly. And that's what's so great about Orwell. He makes the Ministry of Truth, actually they change history, you know, to make it fit what the party wants. And the Ministry of Peace, well, they're in charge of fighting wars. So like every ministry, the name is like totally the opposite of what it actually does.
Right.
It's like a perfect example of doublethink, where they make people believe two things that are totally opposite.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you think about that? You know, like using good sounding words to hide bad stuff. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, it's really scary, especially when you think about how people use language in like the real world to manipulate us and to try to control us.
Right.
So we have this crazy, this crazy world where just being yourself is like a crime. And then we meet Winston Smith. He's our main guy.
Right.
He's an outer party member, so he's like, just this little tiny part of this giant machine. But Winston, he's got this like little fire inside him, you know?
Yeah, it's important to understand, you know how the society works, right? You have the inner party.
Yeah.
They're the top people. They control everything. Then you have the outer party, like Winston, who actually do what the party says. And then you have the proles. They're like the regular people. They don't really know what's going on, you know?
Right, okay.
Uh-huh.
So what does Winston do to fight back? First, he starts writing in a diary, like his own thoughts and feelings, right?
Yeah.
But in Oceania, having your own thoughts is like super dangerous. It's like thought crime. It's like the worst thing you could do against the party.
Well, what's so brilliant about how Orwell writes about Winston is that he's like a normal person,
right?
Even though he lives in this crazy world. I mean, haven't we all felt like, you know, mad at the people in charge?
Yeah.
But in this world in 1984, even like a tiny bit of disagreeing can get you killed.
That's intense.
Yeah.
It makes you really think about all the freedom we have, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Winston's already like walking on eggshells, right? He's got this diary, and he meets this woman, Julia, and bam, they have this connection, right? This forbidden love. But it's not just about love, right? It's like they're fighting back against the party,
Yeah.
which wants to control like every relationship and all the connections we have with people. So what do you think about their relationship, like when you first read it?
Well, to me, it's like, they're just trying to be human in this world where everything's controlled. It's like a little bubble of, like being close to someone and going against the rules.
Right.
In this like ocean of control, you know?
It's like they're holding on to this like tiny little ember of hope.
Yeah.
In this world that just wants to like stomp it out.
Right.
But they can't hide forever, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's this guy, Emmanuel Goldstein, and the Brotherhood. Like they're always there in the background.
Yeah, Goldstein is like the enemy, you know?
Right.
Like the person everyone's supposed to hate. He's the target of the 2 minutes hate.
Right.
It's like this thing they do every day where people get all riled up and angry at him.
Wow.
It's scary how, it shows you how propaganda can control people.
Yeah, the 2 minutes hate.
Yeah.
It like shows you how powerful that stuff can be. Like even if you don't believe it, if you hear it enough, it can make you start to doubt yourself, you know?
Yeah, totally. It makes everyone scared and like suspicious of each other. So if you question the party, you're a traitor.
Wow.
And that's where the Brotherhood comes in. Yeah.
This like secret group fighting back. It gives Winston, some hope, like maybe he's not alone,
Right. Yeah.
which we find out later is not a good thing to believe.
Mm.
And then there's Mr. Charrington. He's like this nice old guy who rents Winston and Julia a room above his shop. Seems like the perfect place to hide, right?
Right. Yeah, he's like the wolf in sheep's clothing.
Okay.
Mr. Charrington is actually part of the thought police,
Oh, wow.
They're like the party's secret police, trying to catch anyone who thinks the wrong thing. So he's like this constant threat that you can never really be alone, You can never say what you really think because someone might be listening.
Oh, so their little love nest is a trap from the start.
Exactly. The shop, the room, even this like old glass paperweight Winston buys there, it's all part of the plan to catch them.
Man. And then that leads to, like, the worst part of the book, right?
Yeah.
Winston gets captured,
Yeah.
and they torture him in the Ministry of Love. That's messed up, right? The Ministry of Love is where they break people, like their minds and bodies.
Yeah, this is where O'Brien, this guy from the inner party, he seems nice at first.
Right.
But then he shows his true colors. He's the one who destroys Winston.
Man, O'Brien is so creepy, right? He was nice and scary at the same time. At first, Winston thinks he's part of the Brotherhood, but then
he turns on him and he tortures him in room 101.
Yeah, room 101 is like the ultimate horror. Right?
Yeah, it's not just physical pain. It's like they find your biggest fear and use it against you, to break you.
And that's why it's so relevant today, right?
Right.
It might not be the same methods,
Yeah.
but the goal is the same.
Yeah.
To control not just what you do, but what you think.
Right.
To make it so no one even thinks about disagreeing.
Yeah. It really makes you think about, all the ways we're influenced in the world today, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like with ads, social media, even politics.
Totally. And that's where doublethink comes in, right?
Right.
O'Brien makes Winston believe that 2 + 2 = 5, even though he knows it's wrong.
Yeah.
So, like, the party can control reality itself by forcing people to believe things that are totally wrong.
Yeah. Doublethink is like how they control everything. It's not just lying. It's making people believe the lies, even when they know it's a lie. It's like destroying how we think and replacing it with just doing what you're told.
Wow. And then there's Newspeak. Have you ever felt like words are being, like, removed from language or changed
Yeah.
to, like, control how people think?
That's exactly what Newspeak is, right? It's like they made this language to control thought.
Wow.
They make the vocabulary smaller so you can't even say things that go against the party.
It's crazy how language can be like a weapon,
Yeah.
By controlling what people can say, you're basically controlling what they can think.
Totally. And it makes you wonder, like, how do we protect language today, so we can keep thinking for ourselves?
It's a big question, and it's one that Orwell really makes us think about.
Yeah. Oh, and we can't forget about the telescreens. Those, those TVs that are everywhere.
Right.
They're always showing propaganda, but what's really scary is that they're also watching you, right?
Yeah, it's like you're never really alone,
Right.
You can't do anything without thinking that someone might be reporting you to the thought police.
Exactly. It's like a total invasion of privacy,
Mhm.
It makes you think about, like all the technology we have today, like our
Yeah.
phones and computers and even our smart homes.
Oh, yeah.
Makes you wonder if Orwell wasn't just writing a story,
Right.
Like maybe he was predicting the future.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. But, Orwell was really good at understanding people, right? Like how our minds work and how people in power can use that to control us.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the symbols in 1984. They're not just there for fun, right? They're like clues to help us understand the story better.
Right. The symbols are like a way for Orwell to say a lot of things without actually saying them.
Exactly. Like, take Big Brother.
Oh, yeah.
He's like everywhere, right? On posters, on telescreens, like in people's heads. But we never actually see him. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think Big Brother isn't really a person, He's more like an idea.
Okay.
He represents the party's power, like how they control everything.
It's like they're always watching you,
Exactly. It makes people afraid to even think anything bad about the party.
Right.
It's a really powerful way to control people,
Yeah. It's scary how fear can be used like that.
Mm-hmm.
Another symbol that I always think about is the glass paperweight that Winston buys.
Oh, yeah.
It's so fragile, like a little world trapped inside. What do you think it means?
Well, I think it represents, the past, like a time before the party when things were maybe better.
Right. Yeah.
Winston wants to hold on to something real, something that the party hasn't destroyed.
Yeah. And of course it gets broken, right? Just like Winston's hope for the future.
Right. It shows how the party crushes everything, even the smallest things.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. And speaking of crushing, we have to talk about Room 101.
Mm-hmm.
Even just saying it gives me the creeps. It's like the worst place imaginable.
Yeah.
What makes it so scary?
Well, what's really messed up about Room 101 is that it's different for everyone. They find your biggest fear and they use it against you.
Right. For Winston, it was rats.
Yeah, anything.
Like spiders or heights or even like public speaking.
Right. It's about breaking you down,
Yeah.
making you betray everything you believe in. And what's really scary is that, a lot of times our fears don't even make sense.
Right.
But the party uses them anyway to control us.
So we've talked a lot about the party and how they control people.
Mm-hmm.
But there's one group that Orwell doesn't really talk about much.
Hmm.
The proles.
Hmm.
They're like most of the people in Oceania, but they're barely in the book.
Yeah.
What do you think about the proles? Like, what's their role in all of this?
Well, the proles are interesting because they're like the wild card,
Okay.
They're not really controlled by the party, like the outer party.
Right.
So they still have some freedom.
But they're also kept in the dark. Right.
Yeah, totally. The party gives them cheap entertainment and tells them what to think.
Just like in the real world. Right.
Exactly. The party knows that if the proles ever figure out what's really going on, the whole system could fall apart.
Wow. So it makes you think, like, maybe there's some hope, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Like, maybe the proles could fight back.
It's hard to say. Maybe Orwell was trying to give us a little bit of hope.
Right.
Or maybe he was just showing us how powerful the party really is.
Okay. So before we wrap things up, I think it's important to talk about Orwell himself. I mean, he didn't just make all this up, right?
No, not at all. Orwell's life was pretty intense,
Oh, yeah.
He fought in a war and saw, like, firsthand how bad things could get.
Yeah.
So when he wrote 1984, he was writing about things he'd actually seen,
Wow. So that's why it feels so real, even though it was written so long ago?
Exactly. 1984 is like a warning, It's showing us what can happen if we're not careful.
Yeah, and it gave us the word Orwellian, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which we use to describe anything that feels like creepy and controlling.
Mm-hmm.
But Orwell's, his legacy is more than just a word.
Right.
1984 makes us think about the world around us,
Yeah.
And it makes us ask questions about power and freedom.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of stuff, the ministries, Room 101, all that. But the big question is, why does this book still matter? I mean, it was written, like, forever ago. Mm-hmm. What makes it more than just some, scary story? Well, I think it's because we see some of the same stuff happening in the real world today, like technology makes it so easy to watch people and information. Well, it can be changed so easily, It's like, sometimes it feels like we have our own 2 minutes hate.
Right. It's like Orwell gave us this, like, guidebook for how to spot a tyrant. Doesn't matter if it's, a government or a company or even just an idea, right?
Exactly. 1984 is not like predicting the future, It's more like it's showing us this fight that people have always had, to be free, to be themselves, even when someone's trying to control them.
Right. It reminds us that we can't just, sit back and relax. We have to, like, pay attention, question things, and stand up for what we believe in.
Yeah, if we don't, we might lose those freedoms without even realizing it.
So if 1984 is like a warning, what can we do about it? Like, how do we make sure that our world doesn't become Oceania?
That's the question, isn't it? I think the first thing is to just, like, be aware, We got to see how power works, how people use language to trick us, how technology can be good and bad.
Right. And once we see it, we got to do something about it.
Exactly. We can't just, stand by and watch. We got to speak up, fight back against injustice, and protect our freedom to think for ourselves.
If you haven't read 1984, you really should. It's not, it's not an easy read, but it's important.
Yeah, it'll make you think, maybe even feel a little uncomfortable.
Right. And in a world where people are always trying to tell us what to think, that discomfort, maybe that's what we need to, make a change.
Yeah, maybe that's what will wake us up. Remember, we have the power to change things. It's not up to Big Brother, it's up to us.
That's a good way to put it. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into 1984. Keep thinking, keep learning, and, stay involved. The future is what we make it.